Let's talk about the first skill that you're going to be developing in the integrated learning system. This is the step-by-step guide. Remember, we're going to talk about each of the 8 skills. And in this video, we're going to focus on helping you develop your listening skills. Okay? Listening is an extremely important skill to develop. And unfortunately, it's one of the skills that English students most often fail to develop. Interesting, because listening is actually the very first skill that children master when they're learning their mother tongue. And it's interesting that when students study texts and they learn by translating and memorizing grammar rules, they have trouble speaking. However, when students learn by listening, then they are able to understand the words when they see them written much more easily, and they're able to speak. This is something I noticed way back almost 15 years ago when I first started teaching, and I realized right away that developing listening skill was crucial. And obviously you want to understand what you're listening to. It needs to be comprehensible, which is why we're working through the integrated learning system in a way that will help you understand what you're hearing, because it's not just enough to listen, you know? Listening is good, it is important, but obviously it needs to be comprehensible. So I need to make that clear right at the very beginning, right from the outset, okay? Because I do have students who have heard teachers talk about listening being important, and they listen a lot, and then after several months they come and say, hey, you know, I've been listening for, I don't remember, I had a guy make a comment a while back. He said, I've been listening to podcasts and watching movies for like 8 months, but I still don't understand anything I hear. And okay, well, the listening is important. I'll explain to you why, but it also needs to be comprehensible. You need to study and learn what you're hearing. You need to learn the vocabulary and expressions and grammar structures, as well as the sounds of pronunciation, so that you actually understand what you're hearing, okay? So I do want to make that clear. Now let's talk about why listening is so important. There is a researcher called Dr. Paul Salzberger from Victoria University in New Zealand who did some research. He published it. You can actually see it at phys.org/news/2009-01-revolutionize-language.html, okay? And I'll put that link there somewhere for you to access easily. But let me show you that real quick. Here's the website talking about Dr. Paul Salzberger, and the best way that he found to learn a language is through frequent exposure to its sound patterns. Okay, he says even though it's crazy and a lot of teachers may not accept that, but our ability to learn new words is directly related to how often we have been exposed to the particular combination of sounds which make up those words, okay? So this is where it all started, and I'm just going to pick out some of the main points here. So remember, he says it's important to hear those combination of sounds, and I mentioned in one of the previous videos that I've noticed students who listen to a lot of music in English often learn much more quickly than students who don't have that habit, just because of what Dr. Salzberger has discovered in his research, which is that neural tissue required to learn and understand a new language will develop automatically from simple exposure to language, which is how babies learn their first language. So what he's saying is that the fact that you're listening to those sounds over and over helps you develop and understand that language. He says that's what's important, okay? Because if you hear words and you're not familiar with the sound combinations, then it's hard for your brain to learn and fix those words so that you don't forget them. So he goes on to say that to learn a new language, you have to grow the appropriate brain tissue, and you do this by lots of listening. Songs and movies are great. So if you needed something to, a reason to start listening more in English, this is research that can help prove to you that listening is important. There was one other thing he said that I thought was very important. I'm going to go back and show you on that page. Okay, so talking about the importance of listening beyond just what you study in the classroom, teachers should recognize the importance of extensive oral exposure to a language. 1 hour a day of study in French text in a classroom is not enough, but an extra hour listening to it on the iPod would make a huge difference. Okay, so if you study in the classroom, that's good, but if you study even more outside the classroom, just listening and hearing the language, it will make a huge difference in your language learning. I actually recommend to my students that before they go to class, they study an hour. So you go and you listen and you prepare for what you're going to learn. Then you go to class and you study what you learn, practice what you learn, and learn more and study whatever the teacher is going to show you, and you speak with the teacher and the other students, and then you go home and you review and listen even more and practice what you learned and all the different things that are going on. So if you study an hour before and an hour after for each of your classes, you will learn much more quickly than your classmates. So just a quick tip there if you really want to accelerate your language learning process. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about the actual listening of your audio. So you've got your audio and now you're going to listen to it. Okay? Don't worry about these other 7 skills right now. Don't worry about your text. Just focus on listening to your audio. And when you do, I want you to evaluate your comprehension. After you listen to the audio file, ask yourself how much you understood, and then go ahead and rate your comprehension. You can use a scale of 0 to 10. 0 if you didn't understand anything, if the audio wasn't clear or the person spoke too fast, and a 10 if you understood everything that was said. Okay, so if the audio is very simple, the text is simple, you may understand a lot. And if not, it's a longer text or more technical, you may not understand very much. Don't worry, that doesn't mean you're a good student or a bad student. All we want you to do is just evaluate your comprehension of the text at this point. Okay, and I want you to listen to it several times. And each time you listen to it, evaluate it again. Normally, what I've noticed with myself and with other students is that when you listen to an audio for the first time, don't look at the text, okay? Because if you look at the text and you read it first and then you go and listen to it, you really won't pay much attention because you already know what's going to be said. So in the beginning, step 1, just listen. Try to understand what you're hearing. And each time you do that, you'll probably notice that your comprehension will improve. So when I go into the classroom and I tell a new story, for example, one of the mini stories to the students, usually the first time I tell it, even if it's a simple story, they'll understand maybe 20 or 30%. And then I'll retell it a second time, and I'll retell it in a little bit different way. I'll add in some more details, ask some more questions, and then they'll understand a little bit more. They may understand 40 or 50%. And then I'll tell it a third time and add in more details, tell it a little bit different way, but using the same words, telling the same basic structure, and they'll understand even more. So they may understand 70 or even 80%. And usually I've noticed that telling the story 3 to 4 times is sufficient. After 3 to 4 times, there isn't a big increase in comprehension between each of the listens, okay? So why do we tell it different times and in different ways? It's because when we're teaching new words, we're going to focus on using those vocabulary words many times so the students hear them sufficiently to learn them. So we may tell the story using a word. Okay, I'm just going to pick a random word here. Let's say car. It's an easy word. But if I'm going to teach the word car, then I'm going to tell the story about Joe who bought a car. Okay, so Joe went to the store and Joe bought a car. And I'll ask the students, do you have a car? What kind of car do you have? What color is your car? Does Joe have a blue car or a yellow car? Okay, so we're using the same word in different ways so it doesn't get boring. We're not just saying car, 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 because, obviously a student would get tired of that, get bored, and not learn the word. But we're using that story different times in different ways, maybe 40 to 60 times in the telling of the story, so they hear it in different contexts, different ways, until they assimilate it and fixate it. Remember, I talked about reading the magazine and seeing words used in different contexts so that I often picked up what they meant simply by seeing it used several times. And that's what happens with students. So a great tip when you're studying is focus on those words. Try to get as much contact with those vocabulary words as you can, but in different ways, which is another reason why using the mini stories in the VIP English Club could be very beneficial for helping your English. In the very beginning, the first 4 modules are very simple. We left it that way specifically just so students wouldn't get frustrated and give up. So listen to the stories, understand them, work through each of the steps in this process, and your goal by the time you finish studying the audio and text with the integrated learning system is that you can retell the story in your own words, not just to memorize it, but be able to retell it, really master the vocabulary words and the grammar structure so that you can retell it. After the first 4 modules, then the stories get longer, the grammar structures get more complex. But in the beginning, we keep it simple purposefully for this reason. And don't forget, even if you do use an audio that's fast, you can always use speed control to slow down the audio. Remember we talked about that with VLC? VLC Media Player is a free player that you can download online that has the option in the playback tab of allowing you to control the speed. So here's normal speed. You can make it play faster or slower, and you can slow it down. So if somebody's talking really fast and you don't understand them, then you can slow down the audio so you can understand what they say easier. Got it? And this, of course, will allow you to focus on your comprehension and understanding what you hear better. So don't worry about the other skills right now. Just listen to that audio 3 or 4 times. Find a short audio, so if it's 3 to 4 minutes long and you listen to it 3 times, then it would take you about 9 to 12 minutes to listen through your audio and understand as much as you can. And then as you go throughout your day, you can just take that audio with you on your cell phone or your MP3 player and listen to it as much as you like. And you can also listen to music and other things as well. Remember, listening is important. Okay, so as you go throughout your day, listen to English as much as you can, because as you listen, according to Dr. Paul Salzberg, you will begin to develop pathways in your neural tissue, which will help you learn the language. So that's pretty much it for listening. Now it's time for your homework. So I want you to go ahead, take that audio you've chosen, the podcast that you've gotten, or one of the audio files that we recommended in the members area for the Integrated Learning System students. Or you can even use one of the mini stories. Whatever you're going to use, go ahead and listen to that now 3 to 4 times, and then try to listen to it several times throughout your day. Listen to it when you have a break at work or at school. listen to it at night before you go to bed, and listen to it in the morning as soon as you wake up. So keep that language flowing through your mind and brain throughout the day. All right, and then I'll see you in the next video where we'll talk about how to develop the next skill in learning your language, which is reading. And if you have any questions or feel something wasn't clear, leave a comment below. Share your stories with us because we love to hear them. Let us know how this is working out for you. Listen to it and then tell us what you listened to, how much you understood, and if you had any interesting experiences with it. Of course, if you have some cool tips or resources, great podcasts you find, some files that you want to share with the rest of the members, leave them in the comment as well. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.